The morning sun spilled like molten gold across the dew-sprinkled lawn, each blade of grass a tiny vessel catching light. In that hush, the coastal home seemed a sanctuary carved from stillness. On a weathered porch, Eleanor sat in quiet communion with the sparrows, her fingers releasing seeds that sent the birds into eager arcs of motion. Day after day for 5 long years, she had greeted dawn this way. Simple, solitary, rhythmic, her only companions the soft rustle of curtains and the portraits lining her walls. Among those pictures one stood out. Her late husband in full police regalia, arm draped around Rusty, the German shepherd who had been his steadfast partner. Eleanor traced that image with a tender gaze, the memory of Rusty's warm muzzle and loyal eyes fueling the ache in her chest. But the storm that came would change everything. When the hurricane roared through, it tore more than rooftops. It wrenched Rusty from her arms and cast him into an uncertain world. Despair clung to Eleanor like damp clothing as she plastered flyers on every telephone pole, begged strangers on the street, and whispered prayers into the night air. Each dusk, she stared at the horizon, wondering if Rusty still lived, if he had found shelter, or if he wandered lost, yearning for the hand that once comforted him. Could hope survive such a tempest? One sunlit morning, friends coaxed her from her solitude, urging a day trip to the countryside. Eleanor hesitated, the weight of years holding her back, but eventually she donned her favorite cardigan and joined the group. They hiked a winding trail through dense woods, the world unfolding in emerald shadows and whispered breezes. Yet Eleanor's steps faltered on a hidden slick stone. The world tilted, a startled cry echoed and then vanished into the trees. Pain lanced through her ribs as she tumbled onto jagged rocks, her breath hitching in ragged gasps. Her fingers clawed at the damp earth, the sky above fracturing into green and brown streaks, then darkness swallowed her. Would help arrive before hope faded entirely? Miles away, the Parker farmhouse sat nestled among rolling fields, a haven of warmth and light. It was here that William, a retired firefighter, and his wife Martha discovered a trembling German shepherd on a lonely dirt road. He was thin, mud-spattered, and staring at them with eyes that mingled wariness and yearning. Compassion overruled caution. They led him home, fed him hearty meals, and watched him curl by the fireplace each night. William took him on morning walks along winding paths. Martha nuzzled him during cold nights, and yet, despite every comfort, the dog's gaze often drifted to the window where he watched the long road beyond the farm. As Martha would later say, and no matter how much we loved you, your heart belonged somewhere else. Was he waiting for the echo of a past life? One late afternoon, the sun cast long shadows across the farm, and William clipped Baxter's leash for their usual stroll. The tall grass whispered in the breeze, carrying the scent of earth and wildflowers. All seemed ordinary until they reached a fork in the trail. Baxter froze, ears pricked, nostrils flaring as he inhaled something electrifying. William paused, leash taut in his hand. "Oh, what's up, boy?" he murmured, but Baxter's rigid posture and rapid chest told a different story. In that instant, memories flooded him of a gentle touch, a soothing voice that once called, a Rosie. Recognition and disbelief collided in his mind. He could risk nothing. With a sudden surge, he yanked free, paws pounding the soft earth as he tore toward the trees. Could a scent lead him home? Eleanor lay still beneath the canopy, dust coating her hair, limbs aching in protest. The forest was silent but for distant birdsong. Then rustling footsteps drew near, paws, not boots. A blur of fur burst into her sight, and time seemed to halt as the dog's eyes met hers. Baxter hesitated only a heartbeat before launching himself forward, nose buried in her hand, frantic whimpers cracking the quiet. Eleanor's heart stuttered as relief and terror warred within her. Was it truly Rusty returned? William crashed through the underbrush at Baxter's heels, breath ragged. He knelt beside Eleanor, fingers trembling as he checked her pulse. "Oh, she's alive," he breathed. Baxter whined, nose nudging her face again and again, desperate for a sign of life. Then a faint groan escaped Eleanor's lips. Light flickered behind her eyes as she blinked upward. Through the haze, she saw the dog, her dog shaking with emotion. "Rusty," she whispered, voice fragile as a leaf in the wind. At the sound of his name, Baxter's tail wagged like a metronome on fast forward, his body trembling with joy. Could love that endured years of separation truly be this powerful? Eleanor's fingers brushed his thick fur, each stroke a lifeline reconnecting two souls. The world around them faded into soft focus as she pressed her cheek against his muzzle, tears spilling freely. William watched, heart swelling with awe and sorrow. He told her how they found Baxter 5 years ago, how he healed on the farm but never forgot the hand that once soothed him to sleep. Nights spent pacing by the window, waiting not for William or Martha, but for someone else. Eleanor's breath caught at his words. Rusty had been waiting for her all this time. Was fate guiding them back to each other? In the farmhouse kitchen, a warm blanket draped over her shoulders, Eleanor sipped tea as the sun's last rays filtered through the window. Baxter lay curled in her lap, chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Martha hovered nearby, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. No words were needed. The room buzzed with understanding. Then Eleanor spoke, voice thick with gratitude. A thank you for giving him a home when I couldn't. William shook his head, gentle but firm. He was always yours. The silence that followed brimmed with shared relief and the promise of healing. Could the bonds of loyalty and love ever truly be broken? The next morning, Eleanor prepared to leave. Baxter hesitated at the door, turning back to nuzzle William and Martha one final time. His tail wagged in slow circles, gratitude, sorrow, farewell. Eleanor's tears glowed in the dawn light as she lifted him into her arms. William placed a calloused hand on Baxter's head. Goodbye, friend, he whispered. Martha pressed a gentle kiss to his brow. Be happy, she murmured. Then Eleanor closed the car door and drove away. Baxter by her side, heart finally whole. Had they all learned what it means to wait, to hope, to forgive? As the miles rolled by, Eleanor stroked Baxter's fur, marveling at the warmth beneath her hand. 5 years of searching, fearing he was lost forever, yet love had found a way. In that realization, her spirit soared. Behind them, the farmhouse receded into the horizon, bathed in morning light. Lay the open road, new routines and sunrise rituals shared once more. And in Baxter's contented sigh, she heard the promise of loyalty unwavering. No storm, no distance, no passage of time could ever diminish a bond forged in the heart. Their journey home had only just begun. As the car wound its way down the country road, trees blurring past in streaks of green and gold, Eleanor glanced at Baxter, his head resting peacefully on her lap. The soft thump of his tail against the seat was rhythmic, like a heartbeat that had finally found its rhythm again. She reached down, gently brushing a stray leaf from his fur, her fingers trembling not from weakness, but from the overwhelming tide of emotion. For years she had carried a weight, a silent ache no one could quite understand. People had told her to move on, to let go. But how do you let go of something that was part of your soul? She thought of the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, whispering his name into the quiet. The holidays spent alone. The ache of an empty porch where no familiar paws clicked against the boards. But today the silence was broken, and in its place was the steady breathing of a dog who had waited, too, waited without question, without blame and without end. Baxter stirred, lifting his head to meet her eyes. It was a gaze filled not with questions but with certainty. She smiled through tears. We're home now, aren't we, Rusty? She whispered, and he answered her not with words but with a low, contented sigh as he pressed his head against her chest. In that moment, Eleanor understood something deep and profound. Love, when it is true, does not need to be spoken to be heard. It echoes in actions, in quiet vigil, in the path back home, no matter how long it takes. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting the world in golden hues, she held him close and knew with all her heart this was the beginning of everything they had waited for.